A year and a half ago, I found myself gasping for breath in the middle of the Amazon River. It was pitch black, 50 meters deep, and I knew crocodiles, piranhas, all sorts of animals lived in these waters. The river was rapidly carrying me downstream. The boat was getting smaller and smaller in the distance, and I was absolutely terrified. To give you some context, I had the privilege of exploring the Amazon on a 3-week environmental expedition with the Mike Horn Young Explorers program. It was day 1, and Mike, our leader, had just called us on deck for our first lesson, learning what to do if someone falls overboard. Now, Mike loves for you to learn from experience. So, after quickly briefing us on the procedure, he asked us to take the plunge, and somehow I was up first. He told me I had to jump into the river while the boat was moving and wait for my team to come and rescue me. And there I lay, barely keeping afloat, in a state of panic. Now, those moments waiting for my team to come and rescue me felt like an eternity. But it was in those moments, so far from my comfort zone, so deep in the unknown, that I learned the most and grew the most. And eventually my team came, you'll be relieved to hear, we made it back safely. But those next 3 weeks were just so challenging, but also gave me an insight into just how beautiful and fragile Mother Nature is. So upon returning, myself and my friend Dan, who was also part of the program, were out hiking in the Hawke's Bay. And it was here that we were inspired to do a project that would encourage New Zealanders to appreciate the beauty of our country and live more sustainably. It was here on this hike that the plastic bottle Kayak was born. We wanted to take a team of youth leaders from across the country on the journey of a lifetime. We would travel 100 kilometers down the mighty Whanganui River on kayaks made from plastic bottles. And the mission was simple. We wanted to enable these youth leaders to experience the beauty of our country. We wanted them to build relationships, to collaborate, and of course, to raise awareness about plastic pollution. Now, at this point, we had this dream, we had this vision, right? But we had no idea how we would get there. We didn't even know if it was possible. But we just believed in the dream and took that first step out of our comfort zones and into the unknown, just as I had plunged into the river that night. And so let me take you back to the start of April. We've just come back from this hike, and the first thing I do is ring up the Department of Conservation. And I told them our dream, and this was the reaction we got. So you're telling me that you want to take a group of young people down one of New Zealand's biggest rivers on a piece of junk? They were shocked, right? But eventually they came around, became full supporters of the idea, and encouraged us to complete the journey as quickly as we could. Winter was fast approaching. The days were getting colder and shorter, and hypothermia risk was on the rise. So we gave ourselves 1 month, set the trip for mid-May, and that next month was one of the craziest months I've ever had. We began by getting friends and volunteers on board and got stuck into planning the logistics, the safety, the sponsorship, the marketing, the media, the different youth organizations would approach, and of course, how we'd actually build these kayaks. And amongst the various challenges we faced, one of the greatest challenges was just trying to source these bottles. I mean, where do you even find 2,000 identical used plastic bottles? And so we tried recycling centers, recycling companies, the city council, we tried cafes, restaurants, music festivals, sports games, anyone and everyone who we thought would use lots of bottles. And in the pits of our desperation, we even tried rubbish dumps, rubbish bins on recycle collection day, but with not much luck. You know, by now we had maybe 200 bottles. They were different shapes and sizes. Half of them were dented. They just wouldn't work. But we never gave up. We kept believing in the dream. We never forgot why we were doing what we were doing, and we pushed forward. And eventually, we contacted a plastic manufacturer of all people, and they had 2,000 bottles that they were about to throw out because they were defected, they had discolorings and things, and instead, they gave them to us. Yes, what a relief that was. Now, all we had to do was build these kayaks. And that, my friends, was an adventure of its own. It took us about 2 weeks to build our first prototype. Here it is. And then it was time to test it. So our team carried it down to a creek near our base. 2 of our team members hopped in, and it floated. It was moving. It worked. We celebrated. How exciting. And then we pulled this kayak out of the water, and to our dismay, half the joints have come loose. The bottles on the underside have just filled up with water. And we knew there was no way these kayaks would last 2 hours, let alone a 3-day journey down this mighty river. And now the pressure was on. We had 10 days till our trip began. We had to get the design right. We had 4 more kayaks to build. And so our design team was busy refining, improving, until we finally had a design that would work. And then the labor really began. Most of our days would begin at 7 a.m., would work till about 10 or 11 every night, cutting these bottles, sanding these bottles, gluing these bottles, taping these bottles into long tubes that we then strap to the bamboo frames we had built. And we had about 10 days of long work. And eventually, in the early hours of a Saturday morning, the very day we were embarking on our journey, the final kayak was complete. And then we were off. There were 25 of us. We had 16 youth leaders from youth organizations across New Zealand and a support crew of 9. We had kayak instructors, an expedition doctor, a logistics team, a film crew, and our kayak designers come along. And the journey, it was just surreal. A highlight for me was just that first moment, being on the water, looking down, and realizing I was sitting on plastic bottles, on junk. And the whole journey just left us stunned and in awe of the beauty of New Zealand. By day, we were stunned by these magnificent canyons on either side, the beautiful waters of the Whanganui. And by night, stars filled the sky. We'd often see shooting stars, and again, it was just beautiful. But it wasn't all easy going. We had long distances to cover every day, and as you can imagine, our kayaks weren't that streamlined. And we'd often face these long patches of water where you'd push as hard as you could, and your kayak would inch forward, and you'd push, and your kayak would just inch forward. But we couldn't afford to lose pace. Nighttime was fast approaching, and we were in a race against the sun. And in those moments, I realized the hardest challenges we face in life are just those mental limitations we place upon ourselves. As soon as you say, I can't, as soon as you give yourself excuses, difficulties emerge. But our team was just phenomenal at encouraging and supporting each other, helping us break past these limitations. And every day, just as dusk was upon us, we made it to our campsite. And once we got to our campsite, we'd set up our tents and start preparing food. And I want you to think for a moment, what are some of the typical foods you take when going on a hike or a journey of some sort? Bread is great. Bottle of peanut butter, perhaps. Muesli bars. Biscuits. Crackers and cheese. Pasta. Dehydrated vegetables are very helpful. But what do all these foods have in common? Plastic packaging, exactly. And we decided to say no, we weren't going to take any of these products. We decided to live plastic-free. And that was a challenge at first, but we did find alternatives. But just by choosing to go without plastic, I realized how much we actually use and then dispose of every single day. And the thing is, in the creation of this plastic, fossil fuels are used, which then pollute our environment. And then we throw them out. They don't break down for thousands of years. They harm our sea life, pollute our waterways, fill our landfills. But the beauty is with every single choice we make, we have the option To choose that which is easier or cheaper or more convenient, or to choose that which is better for our planet? So by now, it was day 3. Our kayaks had done over 60 kilometers on the water. They were well worn out, beaten up, and our design team was busy every night patching them up. And I remembered thinking back to the countless people that said we wouldn't make it. People said it was too hard, it's not going to work, you'll never make it till the end of the river. Why are you wasting your time? Well, today would be the day that would find out. Not only was today our final day, but today, our kayaks would take on the mighty white water rapids of the Whanganui. Our instructor briefed us. In fact, he warned us that on average, half the canoes that go down these rapids capsize. So you can imagine how nervous I felt sitting on plastic bottles. But we were determined to take these rapids head on. We just launched into them, cut straight in, and our kayaks, they just went straight through unscathed. It was incredible. They were just phenomenal on these rapids. And funnily enough, it was some of our canoes, our support boats, that ended up capsizing. And that was hard because now you had capsized and you were wet, and we had this final stretch, and we really had to dig deep to make it through that last leg. And by the end of it, we were wet, tired, exhausted. Every part of our body was just crying out for food and for sleep. But we made it. All 25 people, all 4 plastic bottle kayaks survived the entire 3-day journey. It was amazing to see what happened, and just incredible what a team could achieve when they work together. And I want to show you what happened.
Our journey represented raising awareness of single-use plastic and the fight that we have to battle for it, and ethical consumer choices.
Never imagined that 25 young people from all around New Zealand would, kayak down the Whanganui River in these plastic bottle kayaks.
The sheets are swaying from an old clothesline, like a row of captured ghosts over old dead grass. There's never much, but we've made the most. Welcome home.
Having a great time with inspirational people while changing the world. What more could you ask for?
This is about inspiring change and surpassing expectations.
Plastic Bottle Kayak Expedition 2013!
All my nightmares escape my head. Bar the door, please don't let them in.
Now, going forward, I challenge you to think deeply about what you're passionate about. What is the grandest vision or dream you have for yourself? And despite all the people that say you may not make it, you have to jump into that river. You have to sail on that piece of junk. You have to take that first step into the unknown and go where you never thought you could have gone before. Thank you.